Sometimes, the fall doesn't begin with the impact. It begins the moment we believe we're untouchable. A wealthy tech magnate slapped his pregnant wife in public in front of his mistress, but he didn't know he was being watched. The golden lion of modern Chicago society, Nicholas Deighton, a self-made millionaire with tailored suits, a penthouse in Lincoln Park, and a pregnant wife adored by many. Yet behind the glossy magazine covers and lavish charity appearances, something darker lurked. Whispers spoke of another woman, a mistress whose presence threatened to fracture the storybook marriage. No one could have predicted the fiery public confrontation, or the moment Nicholas's fury spiraled into something unthinkable. Little did he know his wife was harboring a devastating secret that would destroy the world he thought he controlled. Nicholas Deighton was the embodiment of the American dream. Born in a struggling neighborhood in Detroit, Michigan, he climbed the ladder with relentless ambition. By his mid-30s, he owned Deighton Global, a powerhouse in tech, luxury hospitality, and philanthropic ventures. People admired his movie star good looks and envied his gilded lifestyle. Every morning, his personal chauffeur dropped him off at a 60-story glass tower in downtown Chicago bearing his company's name. There, employees whispered about his almost mythical work ethic. Always the first to arrive, the last to leave, polished, in control. Nicholas had the Midas touch. Every business he backed turned to gold. The media adored him, painting him as both a visionary tycoon and a devoted husband. His wife, Claire Deighton, née Lancaster, was the elegant daughter of real estate mogul William Lancaster. Their wedding, 2 years earlier, was a grand affair at the Chicago Cultural Center, attended by dignitaries, celebrities, and powerful figures from around the globe. Claire's every move exuded poise, earning her the nickname the Swan among elite circles. Her charity work, fundraising for children's hospitals and supporting women's shelters, won widespread admiration. When news of her pregnancy broke, tabloids celebrated the next chapter of the Deighton fairy tale. Editors competed for baby exclusives and nursery peeks. Paparazzi stalked every upscale OB/GYN clinic in the city, hoping to catch a glimpse of the couple holding ultrasound pictures. But even in this glamorous life, cracks began to appear. Claire noticed Nicholas's growing restlessness, his frequent business trips to Berlin that didn't line up with Deighton Global's public calendar, or his last-minute cancellations of their private dinners. She tried to justify it as the cost of success. After all, her own father had once sacrificed countless hours to build his empire. Perhaps Nicholas, too, was simply under pressure. But a quiet current of tension ran through their lives. Nicholas's mood had shifted, more irritable, emotionally distant, and evasive. He rarely joined her at prenatal appointments, often sending an assistant instead, citing urgent obligations. Claire brushed it off, reminding herself she could handle the pregnancy on her own if she had to. But fate had other plans. Unknown to Claire, Nicholas was keeping secrets. Office whispers hinted at a mysterious woman spotted leaving his private suite after hours, draped in luxury labels, Balenciaga, Dior, climbing into a sleek black town car that wasn't Claire's. The gossip swirled, but fear of Nicholas's wrath kept most quiet. Meanwhile, Claire continued her charity work, cradling her growing belly with grace, still clinging to the dream they'd built. But as the city moved around them, their destiny was already shifting. Toward betrayal, heartbreak, and revelations no one saw coming. The first to sense trouble was Danielle Price, Nicholas's longtime executive assistant, a sharp-eyed woman in her late 20s. Danielle had joined Deighton Global right out of business school and steadily earned Nicholas's trust. But recently, she'd noticed strange patterns: off-the-books meetings, luxury deliveries to unknown addresses, unexplainable credit card charges at restaurants she had never scheduled. One afternoon, she ran into Claire in the executive lounge. Claire looked pale, gently massaging her lower back. Pregnancy was wearing on her, but she maintained her usual elegance. Danielle approached cautiously. "Mrs. Deighton, how are you feeling?" Claire offered a tired but warm smile. "Just fatigued. 3rd trimester, right?" Danielle nodded, debating whether to speak further. There was something in Claire's eyes, an unspoken need for truth. "If you ever need anything, I'm here," she said, keeping her tone neutral. It wasn't the time or place to voice her suspicions. Claire gave a soft look of appreciation. "Thank you, Danielle. I'll remember that." The tension between them hung in the air, undefined but undeniable. That evening, Danielle found Nicholas in his office, rifling through paperwork with sharp, erratic focus. His tie hung loose, his tone clipped. "There's a red folder on your desk. Send it via courier, immediate delivery. Mark it private and confidential. The address is on the label," he said without looking up. Danielle blinked. "Sir, you mean our Berlin office at the Deighton Hotel property?" His gaze snapped up. "No, the Deighton Belmont, downtown Chicago." The Belmont was only a few blocks away. A courier seemed excessive. Still she nodded, not daring to press further. Once Nicholas left, Danielle examined the package. The name on the recipient label chilled her. Miss Giselle Marceau, a guest at the Belmont's penthouse suite. That name wasn't on any vendor list or business partnership. Danielle sealed the folder but couldn't silence the rising unease. Meanwhile, Claire's father, William Lancaster, was growing suspicious. A seasoned businessman, he had noticed subtle inconsistencies in Nicholas's recent ventures. Contracts once simple now came with complex clauses. William confronted him gently during a Lancaster Foundation dinner. "Son," he said, resting a hand on Nicholas's shoulder, "I've noticed you're expanding faster than ever. Are you overextending? Maybe take a break, especially with the baby coming." Nicholas forced a tight smile. "I appreciate the concern, sir, but I've got everything under control. Just wait, you'll see. Deighton Global's about to break into new territory." William, unconvinced, scanned the crowd for Claire. The weariness in her eyes confirmed his unease. Something was off. He just didn't yet know how deep the cracks ran. "Are you overextending? Maybe it's time for a breather, especially with a baby on the way," William Lancaster said gently, placing a hand on Nicholas's shoulder. Nicholas forced a thin smile. "I appreciate your concern, sir, but everything's under control. Just wait. I'm on the edge of a breakthrough that'll put Deighton Global on the global map like never before." William wasn't convinced. His eyes scanned the event space for Claire. The flicker of discomfort on her face confirmed the unease he felt. Behind the grace and luxury, something was undeniably off. Still, no one could predict just how deep the cracks ran. Whispers went unheard, subtle warnings were dismissed, and in the heart of Chicago, a tale of betrayal was hurtling toward a climax so explosive, even a city used to scandal would be shaken. Midweek, Nicholas stepped into a private elevator at the Belmont Hotel in River North. The elevator purred as it ascended to the top floor, where Giselle Marceau was waiting. She opened the door in a deep crimson satin robe, a smoky smile tugging at her lips. Exotic, assertive, Giselle was the kind of woman who seemed created to unravel powerful men. She claimed to be a French art dealer expanding into Chicago, but her visits with Nicholas rarely touched on anything remotely professional. "Darling," she purred, stepping aside so he could enter the suite. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the glittering skyline. Ivory couches gleamed and her signature perfume clung to the air. Nicholas tossed his coat aside. His nerves were tight. He had canceled 2 high-level meetings just to be there, a risk his younger self would have never dared take. But Giselle's grip on him was intoxicating. She had a gift, one that made him forget obligations, his marriage, even his unborn child. "I can't stay long," he murmured, "but I needed to see you." Her laugh was low, velvet. "I'm flattered. I thought your wife had you on a shorter leash." He stiffened at the mention of Claire. "Let's not talk about her," he said sharply. Giselle raised a brow. "Your call." She slid her arms around his neck. "I have a surprise for you," she whispered, guiding him to a side table. A bottle of vintage champagne rested in a silver bucket. He eyed it, noting the label and its exorbitant price. "You really shouldn't have," he said with a smirk. She winked. "A toast to our next chapter. I'm flying to Europe soon for an auction. Maybe you'd like to turn it into a business trip? Paris or Rome?" The implication lingered, not just travel, but time away, together. Nicholas weighed the offer, guilt tugging at him. "We'll see," he mumbled as he popped the cork. They drank, eyes locked. The outside world faded, but Giselle had motives of her own. She casually probed him for details, about finances, company deals, his VIP connections. Power thrilled her. His name was a gateway, and she viewed their affair as a launchpad for her own ambitions. She sometimes studied her reflection in the suite's mirror, silently assuring herself she was still in control. After about an hour, Nicholas kissed her goodbye and stepped into the hallway, a wave of nerves rushing over him. What if someone saw me? He wondered. But he shook it off. He was Nicholas Deighton, untouchable. What he didn't realize was that in that exact moment, a young bellhop named Lucas Rivas spotted him. Lucas had recognized him from a gala months ago, and now Lucas was about to make a phone call that would trigger the unraveling of Nicholas's secret life, sending shockwaves through everyone in his orbit, Claire, Giselle, and beyond. The following evening, Claire sat on the edge of their penthouse sofa, flipping through pages of nursery design ideas. She had chosen soft shades of mint and lavender, envisioning a calm, welcoming space for the baby. Nicholas, however, had contributed nothing, always citing work. When he finally walked through the door, tension clung to his frame. He glanced past the fabric swatches and baby magazines without a word. Claire's heart clenched. Still, she tried gently. "There's a gala next Friday for the Children's Hospital," she said. "I'm hosting. Can you come?" He loosened his tie, barely acknowledging her. "I don't know. I might be out of town." She set the magazine aside. "Out of town again? Where this time?" He gave her a sharp look. "I have to finalize an international deal. That's it." The tone was final. No more discussion. But Claire, holding back a flicker of anger, stayed composed. "You've been traveling constantly. Berlin, Toronto, even around Chicago. Hotels. Are all these trips really necessary?" Nicholas turned to her, eyes cold. "Are you prying now? Is that what marriage is? Me explaining my every move?" She closed her eyes for a second, steadying her voice. "It's not prying. I just want you present. I've gone to every doctor's appointment alone. The baby will be here in weeks. Don't you want to be around?" His jaw tightened. Guilt flickered, then vanished under his defenses. "I'm building a future, Claire. A future that includes this child. Or do you think money grows on trees? Without these deals, our life crumbles." She blinked away the sting of tears. "You've changed," she whispered. "Somewhere along the way, you became someone I don't recognize." He said nothing, just stared at her before abruptly turning and heading toward his study, leaving her standing in silence. She felt hollow from the chill that had grown between them. Inside his study, Nicholas collapsed into the leather chair. His reflection stared back at him from the floor-to-ceiling windows, a man divided, torn between Giselle's allure and Claire's steadfast love. Between his ambitions and the unborn child, he barely acknowledged. He tried not to think too hard, but the walls were already starting to close in. He tried not to dwell on it too much, but Nicholas felt trapped, suffocated by the very expectations he had built around himself. As he sat alone in the dark, Claire's phone buzzed on her nightstand. A message from an unknown number lit up the screen. "I have information about your husband. We should talk. Lucas Rivas." Confusion flickered across her face. She didn't recognize the name, but something about the message stirred a deep, uneasy instinct. A mix of dread and steel resolve rose in her chest. She tapped the message open, her heart racing. Little did she know she was about to crack open the carefully guarded walls Nicholas had built to shield his double life. Early the next morning, Claire slipped into a quiet cafe tucked off a street in downtown Chicago. She wore a simple black trench coat and a loosely draped scarf to stay inconspicuous. In a corner booth, a young man in a bellhop uniform sat nervously stirring his coffee. His name tag read Lucas Rivas. When she approached, he stood quickly, almost too formally. "Mrs. Deighton, it's an honor to meet you." "Please, just call me Claire," she replied quietly, sliding into the booth. Lucas glanced around as if checking for eavesdroppers. I'm not sure how to say this. I saw your husband at the Belmont Hotel, several times, top-floor suite," he swallowed. "I recognized him from the Deighton Foundation gala last year, and he wasn't with you." Claire's face paled, her chest tightened, but she kept her composure. "You're sure it was him?" He nodded, then retrieved a phone from his pocket. With hesitant fingers, he tapped a few times and turned the screen to her. The photo was grainy, taken from a distance, but it was unmistakably Nicholas, stepping out of an elevator beside a striking brunette. Claire's hand went to her mouth. Her pulse thundered in her ears. A wave of nausea hit her, not from the pregnancy, but from the confirmation that the life she had clung to was a lie. Her mind scrambled, trying to reject what her eyes refused to deny. Her body felt suddenly too heavy, as if every breath had to be pulled through water. For a fleeting second, shame crept in. How could I not have seen this, she thought. Was I that desperate to hold on to a fantasy? The betrayal was cruel, but the self-doubt that followed cut even deeper. "Why are you showing me this?" she asked, voice trembling. Lucas shifted uneasily. "My mom works housekeeping at the Belmont. They didn't treat her well there once. She's also a fan of yours. She volunteers at the same women's shelter you support." He looked down. "You seem kind. You deserve to know the truth." He paused before adding, "I heard the woman's name. She introduced herself as Giselle Marceau." Claire closed her eyes as the name echoed in her mind. Betrayal, humiliation, and a fierce protective instinct for her unborn child surged inside her. She inhaled deeply to steady herself. "Thank you for telling me. That couldn't have been easy." Lucas gave a slow nod, guilt and concern mixing in his eyes. "I just hope you'll do something. You deserve better." Claire reached into her purse and slid an envelope across the table. "I appreciate your honesty. Please, take this." He looked reluctant, but she insisted. After a moment, he accepted it with a respectful nod and stood to leave. As he turned, she gently touched his arm. "You've done me a kindness. Thank you." Outside, the city moved around her. Car horns blared, pedestrians hurried by, oblivious to the emotional storm raging inside her. Each step felt heavier than the last. The image of Nicholas with another woman, so bold, so careless, replayed again and again in her mind. But despite the heartbreak, a defiant spark lit within her. She was Claire Deighton, daughter of William Lancaster, a woman well-versed in power and diplomacy. She thought of the baby, of her father's legacy, of her philanthropic work. "I will not break," she told herself. She would gather proof, plan carefully, protect her child at all costs. The day after her secret meeting with Lucas, Claire scheduled an appointment with her father's longtime attorney, Monica Zhao. A formidable lawyer in her late 50s, Monica was known for her no-nonsense style and fierce loyalty to the Lancaster family. She greeted Claire warmly at a discreet law office near Michigan Avenue. "Claire, come in," she said, concern softening her voice. Once the door closed, Claire opened her phone and handed it over. Monica scrolled through the photos, her face tightening. "This is serious," she said. "An affair, especially during your pregnancy, could have major legal implications." She looked up. "Are you sure you want to go down this road?" Claire's gaze was steady, but her voice cracked with the weight of recent nights. "He made promises, to me, to our baby. He's broken them. I'm not looking to destroy him, but I need to protect myself. And this child, I don't know yet if I want a divorce, but I need to understand my rights." She hesitated for a brief second, long enough for her voice to soften. "I thought, if I just stayed patient, he'd come back to me. I didn't want to be that woman, alone, pregnant, abandoned, but here I am." Monica's silence was understanding, not pitying. Claire straightened her back immediately. "And I won't let that define me." Monica nodded and pulled a folder from her briefcase. "Your prenup includes clauses about infidelity, abandonment, emotional harm. We can begin compiling evidence and secure protections, especially financial, for you and the baby. But Claire, these things can get messy." "I'm ready," Claire said, her jaw tightening. "I'm not going to be naive anymore. I won't let him or her tear this apart." Monica squeezed her hand. "We'll proceed carefully. Start tracking anything unusual, financial transfers, phone logs, sightings. I'll quietly order an internal audit on Nicholas's personal assets to see if funds are being funneled elsewhere." Claire left Monica's office that day with sadness hanging over her like fog, but also with a deep, glowing core of resolve. She clenched her fists as the cab pulled away, eyes burning, whispering to herself, "He chose her. Now I choose me." The betrayal had cut deep, but the fire inside her was stronger now. She would not go down quietly. Meanwhile, Nicholas had no idea the storm was already gathering. His wife was silently orchestrating her retaliation. But Nicholas was far too distracted, caught up in Giselle's growing demands for a European getaway and Claire's sudden emotional distance at home. Their dinners had become painfully silent. On the rare nights he even showed up. He made attempts at small talk, but Claire's responses were calm, distant, polite, and that stung far more than any outright anger. He wondered if she was just exhausted from the pregnancy or buried under her philanthropic commitments. Giselle, meanwhile, had grown bolder. She insisted Nicholas attend an upcoming art exhibition at her River North Gallery, a flashy event meant to flaunt their affair in public. Nicholas refused, citing the risk of being spotted by media or society watchers. Giselle pouted, tension crackling between them. The tides were shifting, yet Nicholas remained unaware. He still believed he controlled the narrative, his empire, his wife, his mistress. But the illusion was nearing its breaking point. No fortress, no matter how fortified, can withstand betrayal and reckoning crashing into each other head-on. The unraveling began at a charity gala Claire co-chaired for the Lancaster Women's Shelter. The venue, the grand ballroom of the Drake Hotel, adorned with chandeliers, marble floors, and elegant floral arrangements. Chicago's elite had gathered, politicians, celebrities, and the philanthropic upper crust. Claire, radiant in an emerald green gown, greeted guests with a gracious smile that masked the storm inside. She spotted her father, William Lancaster, near the silent auction table, lifting his martini in a discreet gesture of support. Then, she saw Nicholas, arriving nearly an hour late, trademark smirk in place, but his eyes avoided hers. To her astonishment, Giselle Marceau was there too. She had donated a rare painting to the auction and secured an invitation. Clad in a shimmering silver gown, she was impossible to miss, her beauty amplified by the tension her presence created. Claire's skin prickled at the sight of her. She steadied her breath, determined not to let the night unravel. But whispers spread as guests noticed Nicholas and Giselle exchanging glances, far too intimate for two supposed acquaintances. Claire carried on with her hostess duties, but each whisper stung like a slap. To make matters worse, Giselle deliberately sidled up to Nicholas at the bar, laughing too loudly. Danielle Price, who was assisting Nicholas that evening, took in the dynamics with concern. She moved discreetly to Claire's side and placed a hand gently on her arm. "I'm here if you need me," she whispered. Claire offered a small, strained smile. When it was time for the program's keynote, Claire took the stage to speak about women's empowerment and the shelter's mission. Her voice was composed, her delivery impeccable. But every line about dignity and safety for women felt aimed straight at the man who should have stood by her side. Mid-speech, her eyes caught Nicholas and Giselle whispering in a corner. A flash of rage burned through her, but she pushed forward, ending with a standing ovation. As she stepped off the stage, hoping to find a quiet spot backstage, Giselle brushed past her, elbow grazing Claire's pregnant belly, hard enough to cause a gasp of pain. It could have been an accident. Or maybe not. Claire doubled over slightly, shocked. A jolt of fear struck her, swift and raw. Her arms flew to cradle her stomach, protective instinct overriding composure. Not the baby, her mind screamed. The pain wasn't sharp, but the violation, the threat, was enough to leave her breathless. For a split second, she wasn't at a gala. She was just a mother, frightened and alone. Nicholas rushed toward her, but instead of concern, he scowled. "Watch where you're going, Claire," he snapped, loud enough for nearby guests to hear. Giselle stood behind him, a smug grin painting her lips. Tears prickled at Claire's eyes, but she didn't break. "My belly, you," she stammered, breath catching in her throat. The emotional weight nearly knocked the air from her lungs. Around them, the room fell silent. Cameras clicked. Phones rose discreetly. It was happening. Nicholas Deighton's carefully polished image was cracking, right in front of Chicago's elite. Claire rushed off the ballroom stage, heart pounding. One hand cradled her belly protectively as she navigated the ornate hallway toward the lobby. She needed air, a quiet place to breathe. But hurried footsteps followed. She turned. Nicholas, his face twisted in frustration. "What the hell was that scene back there?" he demanded, voice low but tight with fury. Claire, shaking, finally snapped. "Scene? I was giving a speech for abused and homeless women. While you," her voice quivered, "while you whispered with her and now I'm the problem?" He grabbed her arm. "Keep your voice down," he hissed. Eyes were already watching. Claire yanked her arm back, ignoring the pain. "Don't you dare touch me," she spat. "You're the one making a spectacle." "You're in public, Claire," he warned. "Don't do this." Before she could answer, a third figure joined them, Giselle, slinking forward with smug confidence. "Nicholas, darling," she cooed. "Is everything all right?" Her smirk said she relished every second of Claire's anguish. Claire turned on her. "You have no right to call him that. Not here. Not in front of me." The crowd was forming, shoulders turned discreetly, phones raised behind clutch bags. The spectacle was unfolding in full view now. William Lancaster was pushing through the onlookers, his face tight with dread. Nicholas, cornered, lashed out. "Stop acting like a victim, Claire. You don't know the pressure I'm under. The deals I have to manage. Giselle is—" But the rest of his sentence never landed. "I understand perfectly," Claire cut in. "You're a liar, a cheat." And then, something snapped inside him. Nicholas's hand struck her cheek. A loud, sharp slap. Gasps echoed off marble walls. Flashes lit up as cameras captured the moment of impact. Claire staggered back, her hand flying to her face. Everything slowed, her vision blurred, pain radiating across her cheek and deeper still, into her soul. The sound cracked through the marble lobby like a gunshot. Gasps rippled through the crowd, and cameras flashed, capturing the exact moment Nicholas's hand struck Claire's cheek. She staggered, hand flying to her burning face as the world around her slowed. In that moment of horror, everything paused. Giselle's smug expression melted into stunned disbelief. William Lancaster finally broke through the crowd, his voice a thunderous roar. In that single, violent act, Nicholas Deighton destroyed what remained of his golden image and catapulted Claire into a realm of heartbreak and fury she had never imagined. No one moved. The grand chandeliers seemed frozen in shock. Claire clutched her belly instinctively, heart thudding wildly as her vision blurred with tears. The baby. Her first thought was for the baby. William was the first to react. He shoved Nicholas back, voice echoing across the marble foyer. "Have you lost your mind?" He bellowed. "That's my daughter, you worthless bastard." The crowd parted. Some guests rushed toward Claire, others instinctively lifted their phones, unsure whether to film or call for help. A security guard hovered nearby, paralyzed by the escalating domestic scandal. Nicholas stood there, his face twisted in a mask of rage and disbelief. The adrenaline coursing through him made his chest heave. "She provoked me," he began, his voice hollow and desperate, but no one was buying it. Claire took a shaky breath and met his eyes with a coldness he had never seen before. Pressing her palm to her throbbing cheek, she spoke in a voice as sharp as glass. "You dare lay a hand on me? On your pregnant wife? You've crossed a line. There was no coming back." Giselle, now wide-eyed, began edging away, clearly trying to distance herself from the chaos she had helped ignite. William turned on her, eyes blazing. "And you, whoever you are, don't you dare come near my daughter again," he growled. Giselle shrank back, grabbed her clutch, and slipped into the crowd, which parted for her like the Red Sea. Before Nicholas could respond, William barked at the security guard. "Call an ambulance. My daughter is pregnant." The guard rushed to comply. But Claire, steadying herself despite the trembling in her limbs, straightened. "I don't need an ambulance," she said, her voice quivering but firm. "I just need to get away from him." William gently supported her as they moved toward the entrance. Outside, alerted by the disturbance, paparazzi swarmed. Camera flashes lit up the night as Claire emerged from the hotel, tear-streaked, with her furious father by her side. Nicholas stumbled after them, desperate to salvage control. "Claire, don't walk away. Let's just talk." She turned to him, eyes filled with disgust. "Don't you dare come near me." Her voice slammed the door shut on any illusion of reconciliation. She slid into the back of her father's waiting limousine. William followed, and the door shut with a definitive thud. The vehicle sped away, disappearing into Chicago's neon glow. Nicholas stood alone on the sidewalk, dazed. The cameras kept flashing, immortalizing his disgrace. Within minutes, the headlines would dominate every screen. Billionaire Nicholas Deighton slaps pregnant wife at charity gala. Mistress involved. Any chance of sympathy was obliterated by the avalanche of condemnation. At that moment, the empire he had built on charm and charisma began to crumble before his very eyes. Inside the limousine, Claire's vow echoed in her mind. "Never again. He will never harm me or this child." 2 days later, Claire was holed up in her father's penthouse on Lakeshore Drive, protected from the media by private security. She stayed in a quiet bedroom with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. But the view brought no peace. Her thoughts swirled. Betrayal, fury, grief. Monica Jo had arrived that evening with legal documents in hand and a resolute expression. William had insisted on filing assault charges, or at the very least, a restraining order. But Claire hadn't made up her mind yet. As Monica spoke with William in the adjacent living room, Claire's phone buzzed again. Unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. "Mrs. Deighton, Claire, it's Danielle Price," the voice said quickly. I'm so sorry about everything." Claire's heart raced. "Danielle, just tell me." "I found something," Danielle said shakily. "I've worked for Nicholas for years. I stayed loyal because, well, he looked out for me. But after what he did, I can't stay silent." Claire closed her eyes, bracing. "I found emails, documents. Giselle, she's not just a mistress. She's using him to launder money, offshore accounts, fake investment fronts." Claire gasped. "Are you sure?" "Absolutely. There are wire transfers, massive ones, taken directly from Deighton Global's charitable arms. Giselle convinced him the funds would support European expansion. It's all a sham. He was so infatuated, he didn't question it." Claire clutched her belly. Her mind spun. "This isn't just infidelity, it's criminal." "I'm sending the files to Monica Zhou," Danielle continued. "They'll help you legally." Claire didn't speak. She was overwhelmed. "There's more," Danielle added. "I overheard a call between them last night. He was blaming her for the fallout. She threatened to expose him if he cut her off." Claire's breath caught. "Blackmail," Danielle whispered. "She's got receipts." Claire's knees buckled beneath the weight of the revelation. She had suspected Nicholas of betrayal. But this was treachery on a whole new scale. "Thank you, Danielle," she whispered. "You did the right thing." After ending the call, Claire summoned Monica Zhou. The attorney listened closely, her eyes narrowing as the truth unraveled. "This changes everything," Monica said. "Nicholas isn't just facing assault charges. He could be implicated in serious financial crimes, and Giselle too. If you move forward with divorce, this evidence could secure you a substantial settlement and shield your father's name from the scandal." Claire felt a storm of emotions, anxiety, relief, and something else. A hard-edged resolve. Nicholas might have wrecked their marriage through betrayal and violence, but now she held a card he never saw coming. Proof of something far worse. The question now was how to play it. Meanwhile, inside his penthouse, Nicholas Deighton paced like a trapped predator. The fallout from his public assault on Claire had shattered his reputation overnight. Deighton Global's stock plummeted. Board members sent frantic messages. He ignored the media, his father-in-law, even his own mother. He locked himself inside. The only person he still communicated with was Giselle Marceau, who now demanded hush money. Their last phone call had been venomous. "You don't get to walk away from me, Nicholas," she had hissed. "If I go down, I'll take you with me. I have records of every wire transfer." He had snapped. "Don't threaten me. I can bury you." But the threat had lost its weight. He was in free fall, and Giselle knew it. She had played him masterfully, stroking his ego while executing her own scheme. Now the money she demanded was more than he could discreetly siphon from company funds without raising red flags. Alone in his disheveled office, Nicholas slammed his fist against the desk. Papers scattered, including a tabloid headline that chilled him. "Billionaire Deighton exposed. Violence against pregnant wife caught on camera." A photo of him mid-slap was splashed across the front page. In desperation, he dialed Claire's old number. It rang once before going to voicemail, likely changed or turned off. He tried William's number. No answer. Even Danielle Price had turned her back on him. He was isolated. The empire he had built, brick by golden brick, was now crumbling around him. He sat down and poured himself a stiff whiskey, ignoring the early hour. His hand trembled as he lifted the glass. The silence of the penthouse, which once felt like a kingdom, now echoed with a crushing hollowness. He stared at the liquor swirling inside, seeing nothing but what he had lost. Claire's trust, the baby he hadn't even held yet, the legacy he'd been so desperate to preserve. It all felt distant now, like a dream slipping into nightmare. He leaned back and for a long time did nothing, just listened to the air hum around him, a man surrounded by his own ruin. He told himself he never meant to hurt Claire. It was a moment of madness, not who he truly was. But the guilt clawed at him, haunting him with images of what he had done and what he stood to lose. His company, his child, any shred of self-respect. Then his phone buzzed with a new email. The subject line, "Legal Proceedings, Zhou Law Group." His fingers trembled as he opened it. Claire was filing for a protective order citing domestic abuse. She also requested an immediate freeze on select Deighton Global assets pending divorce negotiations. The letter alluded to potential criminal investigations into financial fraud. The final line struck like a hammer. "We advise you to respond within 72 hours to avoid escalation." Nicholas's vision blurred. They know. The laundering, the transfers, Giselle's manipulation, it had all come to light. Panic twisted in his chest. He wanted to rage, to blame someone, anyone. But deep down he knew this downfall was his own doing. He turned to the city skyline, the same view he once believed he owned, and saw it now as a looming verdict. The reckoning had begun. Meanwhile, Claire sat quietly in her father's penthouse, high above Lake Shore Drive. Monica Jo had just left, having finalized the initial legal filings. The protective order would be in effect by morning. The divorce papers, citing adultery and domestic violence, were nearly ready. An audit into Deighton Global's questionable transfers was already underway. Claire sat beside a large window, absent-mindedly stroking her belly. She was no longer the woman who once clung to a fragile marriage. She had faced the truth about Nicholas in the most brutal way imaginable. Now her every thought was focused on the path ahead. Still, beneath the surface strength, her body betrayed signs of fatigue. The nights were restless, haunted by flashes of the slap, the betrayal, the humiliation. Her doctor had warned her to manage her stress for the baby's sake. But how could she, when even sleep felt like an ambush? She placed her hand on her stomach again, this time whispering under her breath, "We'll be okay, I promise." A knock at the door startled her. William stepped in, his normally composed expression softened by concern. "How are you feeling?" he asked quietly. Claire offered a faint smile. "Better than I expected. The bruises are fading. The baby's doing fine. The doctor said everything looks stable." William nodded, relieved. "I know this must be unbearable." Claire looked out the window. "I never thought I'd end up here. Married to a man who would cheat, then hit me. But I can't dwell on that. I have to do what's right for this child and for myself." William hesitated. "There's something you should know. I called a few friends in the DA's office. If Nicholas's finances are tangled up in anything illegal, there could be charges. And if he tries to claim you provoked him, don't worry. We have eyewitness statements from the gala." A flicker of relief crossed Claire's face. "Thank you, Dad. I appreciate you standing by me. All of this, it's still hard to believe. Our life collapsed so fast, it doesn't feel real." He wrapped an arm gently around her shoulders. "You're stronger than you know. You'll get through this." Claire leaned into the embrace. She thought back to when Nicholas was the charming man who used to make her laugh. That image now felt like a cruel illusion. Over the next few hours, she began putting her life in order. She wrote personal letters to a few trusted friends, letting them know she was safe but needed time. She called her philanthropic committees and handed off duties for upcoming events. When she called the women's shelter she co-chaired, the staff responded with unwavering support. Each small task helped her reclaim her footing. She was no longer just Nicholas Deighton's wife. She was a mother-to-be, a philanthropist, a woman reclaiming her dignity. Every step she took was a rung on a ladder out of despair, and she knew a final showdown was likely still ahead. But she wasn't afraid anymore. The man who tried to break her would soon discover the fiercest storms are endured by those who refuse to be swept away. 48 hours after Monica Zhao's email landed in his inbox, Nicholas Deighton stood outside William Lancaster's penthouse, flanked by 2 lawyers he had hastily retained. The building's doorman eyed him with wary recognition. The scandal had swept across Chicago. Still, he allowed Nicholas in, noting the meeting had been arranged through Zhou Law Group. Inside a softly lit living room, William, Monica, and Claire awaited. Claire sat poised on a velvet couch, posture regal despite the weight of her late pregnancy. The bruising on her cheek had faded to a faint yellow, but the memory of his slap was etched deep in her expression. And deeper still, buried beneath the surface, was a fatigue no makeup could hide. She hadn't slept through the night in days. Her spine ached constantly from tension. Her appetite flickered in and out. Yet here she sat, composed, collected, unwavering. Nicholas's lawyers offered stiff greetings. Monica's voice was crisp as she guided them to the dining table, layered with documents. "We're here to finalize the protective order, address the divorce proceedings, and confront the financial misconduct allegations." Nicholas's jaw tightened. "Allegations," he muttered bitterly. "Not proven." Monica tapped a folder in front of her. These are records from Deighton Global's accounts, showing funds diverted into Giselle Marceau's shell companies. We also have her bank statements, tracing the money to offshore accounts in the Caymans. It won't take a jury long to draw conclusions. His face twisted. I was misled. She said it was for European expansion. Claire spoke for the first time, her voice cool and composed. And you pulled those funds from charitable foundations, Nicholas, money meant to help people. All for her, or for your ego? Her gaze was level, but behind it flickered a memory of late nights spent drafting proposals for children's shelters, fundraising events where every dollar mattered. She'd defended his reputation more than once, believing he shared her values. Now she knew. He hadn't. Nicholas turned to her, something like regret flickering in his eyes. Claire, you have to believe me. I never meant to hurt you. She stared straight through him. Yet you did. His lawyers tried to steer the conversation. We propose a private settlement and non-disclosure agreement. In exchange, Mr. Deighton is willing to surrender a portion of assets. Claire raised a hand, cutting him off. No, her voice was firm, resolute. He lost the right to silence this. The divorce has been filed, and there will be no secrecy. Women, especially pregnant women, need to know that abusers don't get to hide behind money. Nicholas slumped in his chair, visibly defeated. So this is it. Claire inhaled, steadying herself. There's one more thing you need to know. He looked up, startled. William gave her a gentle nod, signaling her to go on. A heavy silence settled over the room as Claire squared her shoulders. Nicholas, the baby I'm carrying, has a serious medical condition. I only found out after a recent test. He'll need specialized care, possibly surgery. Tears slid silently down her cheeks. But her voice didn't break, not this time. She had already cried, alone in the bathroom at midnight when the diagnosis came. She had already run the scenarios, imagined the NICU visits, the waiting rooms. What she hadn't imagined was doing it alone. But now she would. And she'd be ready. All the money you squandered on Giselle, that's money our child desperately needs. You didn't just betray me, you betrayed his chance at a healthy life. Nicholas went pale, eyes drifting to her belly. I didn't know, he whispered, horror dawning on his face. He stumbled backward as the weight of her words sank in. Margaret's stern look said everything. The courts would show him no mercy. And for Claire, a powerful sense of closure bloomed. The truth was no longer hidden. Her heartbreak, her baby's condition, Nicholas's greed, it was all laid bare. And no matter what followed, she had reclaimed control of the story he tried to erase. In the weeks that followed, the legal reckoning was swift. Monica Jo and her team leveraged every document Danielle Price had unearthed. The district attorney's office launched an investigation into Nicholas's financial misconduct. Giselle Marceau, sensing her time was up, fled the country, leaving Nicholas to face the consequences alone. Deighton Global's board voted to remove Nicholas as CEO. The company's once pristine reputation was in ruins. Stock prices crashed. Claire's civil lawsuit for damages, assault, emotional trauma, and misuse of philanthropic funds was underway. Public support rallied behind Claire. The pregnant woman left battered by a man once worshipped as a titan of industry. Yet amid the chaos, Claire found purpose. She began laying out a plan for her baby's care, assembling a team of specialists through her father's network. Donations poured in as she launched a campaign to raise awareness for other children facing similar conditions. Claire led the charge, transforming heartbreak into hope. William watched his daughter with pride. The quiet socialite of yesterday had become a woman of unshakable strength. Together, they restructured a portion of the Lancaster Foundation to focus on pediatric health. The new initiative bore the name of Claire's unborn son. On a crisp autumn morning, Claire gave birth to a baby boy. Though he required immediate intervention, doctors were optimistic. Monica Jo visited the hospital to deliver the final set of divorce documents. A judge had ruled in Claire's favor, granting full custody and freezing Nicholas's assets pending criminal investigation. Standing beside the hospital bassinet, Claire signed the final page. Later, she was wheeled out of the hospital with her son in her arms. Paparazzi lingered behind security barriers, hoping for a shot. But Claire didn't hide. She held her child close and met the cameras with unwavering calm. The next morning's headlines read, Claire Deighton leaves hospital, triumphant, newborn stable after emergency care. A a striking contrast to Nicholas's freefall from grace. Days later, Danielle Price visited William Lancaster's penthouse, shoulders heavy with apology. "I should have spoken up sooner," she said quietly. Claire only reached for her hand. "But you did. That's what matters." Danielle smiled faintly and handed over a box of baby gifts, small tokens from Deighton Global staff who had distanced themselves from Nicholas's fall. For Claire, it was a quiet, final moment of closure. She had survived. She had fought. She had rebuilt. And now she would rise. As for Nicholas, his future loomed grim. Court battles, financial collapse, and the crushing isolation of a man who realized too late the cost of his own ambition. Giselle never returned. She had drained him for everything and disappeared, leaving only wreckage behind. The city that once praised his brilliance now whispered his name with scorn, associating it only with scandal and disgrace. Claire, however, walked into a new chapter. With her baby in her arms and her father beside her, she embraced motherhood and advocacy, her scars a testament not of defeat but of endurance. She was no longer a victim. She was a survivor, a warrior, a woman who had seized back the narrative of her life and ensured her son's future would be founded not on lies but on love. And so ends the story of Nicholas Deighton and Claire Lancaster, a tale scarred by betrayal, abuse, and unchecked power. But from the ruins of a once glamorous union rose a stronger, wiser woman, devoted to her child and to the cause of justice. Claire's quiet resolve sent a message louder than any scandal. True strength lies in standing up to abuse, in protecting the vulnerable, and in refusing to let the past define the future. As Nicholas confronts the consequences of his fall, Claire moves forward, carrying the kind of courage only heartbreak and a mother's love can create. Dear friend, in the stillness after the storm, we are often left with pieces of pain, of truth, of ourselves. What Claire reminds us is this: we do not choose our trials, but we do choose our response. As the Stoics teach, what stands in the way becomes the way. Claire did not crumble beneath betrayal, she rose from it. Her story is not just about heartbreak or justice. It's about reclaiming dignity, protecting the innocent, and turning suffering into strength. So, whatever you're carrying today, let this be your reminder. Your past may shape you, but it does not own you. The fiercest strength is the kind that grows in silence, behind closed doors, and blooms when no one expects it. If this story moved you, please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing to our channel. Your support allows us to keep telling stories that matter, stories that remind us we are never truly alone.